Charles Cheval.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, I'm pleased to be able to take a call on the first reading of the Electoral Administration Amendment Bill. As was said, I think, by Leanne Dalzell and by the Minister, this is the second bill in a two-stage reform of electoral administration, serving to establish the new combined body to be known as the Electoral Commission. So members may remember from debate on the first bill in this reform process that colleagues of mine on this side of the House spoke in support of the new Electoral Commission. The basis for that support is a belief that the current system is not as efficient as it might be, and that the one proposed will be a more effective regulator of the electoral process. And the quality of the proposed authority will be incredibly important. So the very nature of changes to acts such as the Electoral Act is such that they can have very serious constitutional ramifications for the way our country runs. And so although we're supporting the bill on its introduction, obviously we will have to subject it to very close scrutiny at Select Committee and give serious consideration to all submissions received. And so what I'd like to do at this point in my speech is just pay tribute to the work that has been done by the Select Committee already in the process that I mentioned before, that this is effectively the second part of, because the new electoral finance laws and the first referenda on MMP bills have also been considered by that committee, and I think it's appropriate to record that that committee has worked on a multi-party basis to try to achieve consensus on matters that will hopefully mean we do have greater integrity in our electoral law. I remember speaking on the legislation earlier and lamenting the fact that there was initially a refusal in that original legislation to provide for spending caps on so-called parallel campaigners or third parties. But it's great to see that the committee is coming back with a workable compromise on that issue. The Electoral Legislation Committee, I think, reported the new electoral finance and referenda legislation to the House, providing for a $300,000 spending limit on third parties in the 3 months prior to an election, and that is an appropriate thing to have done, and it does, I think, reflect the fact that the committee's worked well and that the government, and in particular the Minister, is working in an appropriate spirit on electoral legislation by having accepted that recommendation and bringing the report back to the House with support. Clearly, that decision to allow for a cap on third parties will go a long way to quelling concerns that money could have an overt influence over future elections, and that we were moving toward the Americanisation of our political system. So I think we can be hopeful, given the scrutiny but also the consensus that's been reached to date by the Special Electoral Committee, that we'll see a careful consideration of this bill in the Select Committee, and that if improvements are needed to it, then we'll see those hopefully in a spirit of multi-party agreement as well. Sir, it is appropriate, I think, to have this new combined entity to regulate elections, and it's likely that it will be more effective than the previous three entities. Although the election administration machinery will be streamlined by the bill, I think it's appropriate for somebody, at least in the speech, to record that in saying that, nobody's trying to take anything away from the fine work that's been done by the three existing agencies, which have served New Zealand really well, as we've had largely free and fair elections in this country. One or two notable exceptions that probably don't need to be rehearsed in this speech. But the Office of the Chief Electoral Officer, the previous Electoral Commission and the Chief Registrar of Electors have had a demonstrable commitment to the oversight of free and fair elections. And we are so blessed in this country to have those types of elections generally that I think sometimes we take them for granted and we fail to realise how well served we've been. So let's hope that the new combined body will continue in the spirit of its three predecessors and do an even more effective job by being able to discharge its responsibilities efficiently by having all the functions in one body rather than split across three. As to the need for reform, it's interesting to have a look at the functions of the previous bodies. The Chief Electoral Office conducted the elections, the Electoral Commission registered political parties and logos, and the Chief Registrar of Electors was responsible for the electoral roll. Well, clearly the reform process that's mooted by this bill will make the system potentially more efficient by making sure that those roles can be carried out by this new body. So conducting elections, dealing with donations and expenditure, informing the public about electoral matters, appropriating broadcasting time and funding, registering parties and logos, maintaining the electoral roll, sharing the information across what used to be separate authorities, reducing crossovers and potential miscommunications, all should make for a better system. And it is very important that the new Commission be staffed at the highest levels by the very best people available. As Leanne Dalzell said, this Parliament, facilitated on the appointment side by the Minister, has made 2 appointments to the new Commission. A third is pending. It is important that we get that appointment expedited and that the work of the Commission can continue with a full complement of members of the Commission. There's a big job ahead, certainly in terms of supervising the next election and possibly the odd by-election that might well spring up in the meantime. And obviously there's the job of supervising the MMP referendum, which the government remains determined to hold in conjunction with the next election. Unfortunately, we don't have the member for Botany here to tell us about the likelihood of the next by-election, but obviously it is desirable to have that Commission up and running at full strength as soon as possible. And I do hope that the Minister will hasten to ensure that that third member of the Commission can be appointed on a consensus basis in the Parliament as the legislation intends. So the amendments that were recommended by the Justice and Electoral Committee from its inquiry into the 2008 general election also will, when adopted in legislation, make the enrolment process better. They'll result in more people being on the electoral roll and provide more clarity around the status of immigrants to New Zealand and whether or not people in that category are eligible to enrol. This is good news. It's become an issue in recent years and it is an area that needs improvement. I know from personal experience in recent weeks, door knocking in Mana, that there was a lot of confusion around enrolment in immigrant communities. And a lot of voters wouldn't have had the chance to enrol if our party and no doubt other parties hadn't taken the forms physically to them, either in their homes or in shopping centres or wherever, and ensured that they were on the roll or able to cast a special vote. So the more that we can do to ensure that the body charged with the public function of ensuring that everybody who's entitled to be on the roll is, the better. And I think we can, although we can praise the innovative work that's been done to date on enrolment, there's always more that can be done, especially with new technologies that are now at the command of this new body, and we want to see all those innovative technologies and opportunities deployed by the new body. Mr. Speaker, I look forward to the general election next year being conducted under the new authority that the government set up. I'm sure that the new Electoral Commission will do an excellent job. I do hope that the third member is appointed promptly, and also I wish the Select Committee all the best in its consideration of this legislation, and I hope that we'll see the same type of consideration, thorough and consensus-based, that we've seen to date on electoral legislation in this Parliament.